always starts with the women. So she and my wife, you know, they kind of connected, and she said, I want to connect more with you, and vice versa. One thing led to another, and then here comes these two slowpokes to this relationship. However the speed or the time, we thank God that history was made, and history is still now being made. Amen. Before we invite my dear brother and our pastor, Harold Britton, I certainly want to acknowledge the other pastors. Would you stand, please, pastors that's in the house, and show them some kingdom love. The McTaggers, the Seals today. We love you. Thank you for your support.
Amen.
Another fine couple, the Heralds here. Amen. We want to ask Dr. Skeeter to come at this time, and he's one of our dear brother's sons, and he's going to introduce his papa to you now.
Praise God.
Praise God.
Now, I'm not going to be able to introduce you like Sister Tina can introduce you. Because we know can't nobody do an introduction for you like Sister Tina. But also can't no one do an introduction for you like a son. So the man of God is going to come forward. I've had the opportunity to sit under his leadership as a father in ministry for 11 and a half years. So when it comes to the Word of God, he's firm when it comes to the Word of God. Because he believed in the Word of God. He believes God's Word is true. And he believed that faith, and he know that faith is the master key to whatever you need from God. And I believe that God has given him a word to help set the captives free, a word to help liberate the people of God, a word that can move you forward to your destiny. And I thank God for him, and also his lovely wife tonight. But this is a man that has accomplished many things in his journey, in his 18 years of ministry. At this time, I want us to stand and get a man of God a hand as he comes forward to deliver what God has given him, that he has consecrated and laid over night and day for tonight. Let's receive him at this time.
Amen. Everybody shout praise. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Amen. It's good to be in the house of the Lord. Amen. I say it's good to be in the house of the Lord. Amen. Praise the Lord. We give honor to God who was ahead of our life. The apostles and the first day to give me this opportunity to come before you all. We came here with a seed based on the Royal Priesthood Ministry Church. Whenever we come into the house of the Lord, we always come with a seed. And we took up a seed and I put it in the basket right there for you. It was special for y'all. Amen. 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 The Lord is good. Amen. Well, before the word comes forward, amen, I want to thank my son and all the members of Royal Priesthood Ministry Church. Praise the Lord. Amen. Good to be in the house one more time. But I think I'm going to pull back for a minute and I'm going to let the Royal Priesthood Ministry praise team come with a song. Praise the Lord. Come on, give it a praise.
Amen. Somebody said, thank you, Jesus. Amen. You know what? Hallelujah. They don't know what to do with me. Because God got me. And so I'm going to represent. And I'm going to ask the lady to put on the song. Amen. And you know what? I'm not going to stop praising him no matter what. Amen. Amen. Because it's done. I want to say give honor to God. Before we start, I give honor to God, to Apostle Glenn and to Prophetess Leola. I thank God for you all. Every time we come, there's always a supernatural impartation And I don't know about y'all, but every year I be expecting, and even when I come here, I be expecting to get some more and some more and some more. Because the prophetic that you have on your life, I need it. And so I thank God I'll be trying to get all that I can from y'all. And I appreciate you all, amen. And I thank God, hallelujah, for all the other ministers. And of course, I give honor to that blessed, prosperous, highly anointed, fine, wealthy, healthy, pleasing God to the max, awesome, fun husband, Pastor Harold. Amen. Ain't nobody like him. Amen. For 25 years, but I thank God that He's good and He's great. Amen. And so you can go ahead and get started so we can get to the word. Amen. And those of you who know this song, sing with me. Hallelujah.
You did not create me to fear, but you created me to worship daily. So I'm all right here. Help me say, you did not create me to worry. You did not create me
When I came into the apartment complex, they knew that I was coming. And I want to share that song with you. Amen.
I thought you were going to sing.
Well, it's not that
Okay.
Yeah.
We serve a sovereign God. His name is available for us. The Lord God. Hallelujah. Just all of us.
years. 36 years. The first name of Apostle, I know y'all been going on. Y'all seen a lot. 36 years anniversary. And I want to thank you for giving us Royal Priesthood Ministry, my son, Dr. Skeeter, and Donna Harper. I want to come and share this with you. Amen. And I think 36 years, I got a scripture text I use, and I got a theme. I'm a man of what I want to stick with my scripture text, and I want to stick with my theme. Amen. How many of y'all brought your Bible with you? Amen. Whenever you come into the house of the Lord, amen, always bring your Bible with you. And see, when you don't bring your Bible, then let me know you come here to be entertained. But I'm not an entertainer. I'm a preacher of the gospel. Amen. Bring that Bible with you. And I think the scripture that they gave me was in Romans chapter 3. We actually stand for the reading of God's word. Praise the Lord. If you have the Bible, shake it and shake it, wave it up in the air. Let the devil know that you're armed with neighbors. Amen. Say, this is my Bible. I am what it says I am. I can do what it says I can do. I can have what it says I can have. Today I will be taught the word of God. I go to confess. My mind is alert. My heart is receptive. I'm about to receive the incorruptible, the indestructible, the ever-living word of God. I will never be the same. Come on, say it like you mean. I will never be the same. I will never be the same. In Jesus' name. Go give us some praise on this house. In Romans chapter 3, we'll be reading beginning from verse 20 down to verse 26. If you have it, say praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
And therein you shall find. Therefore, by the deed of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of what?
Sin.
But now the righteousness of God without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets. Even the righteousness of God, which is by what? Faith of Jesus Christ unto all and above all them that believe. For there is no difference. Let's read on down. Let's keep going. Verse 23. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Amen. Being justified. That word justify means being righteous. Being righteous freely by his what? Grace. Through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus. Amen. 25. Whom God has set forth to be a propitiation through faith in his blood. To declare his righteousness for remission of sin that are past. Through the forbearance of God. 26. To declare, I say, at this time, his righteousness, that he might be just and the justifier of him which believeth in who? Jesus. Glory to God. And we have a theme for this 36 years. And his theme, my brothers and sisters, is grace for the gift.
All right.
Grace for the gift. Grace for the gift. Grace for the gift. And I was looking at that word, grace for the gift. And that grace, my brothers and sisters, there's nothing you can do to earn that grace. It's a gift. There isn't anything that you can do to earn being righteous. By you coming out tonight, it doesn't make you righteous. Now it's the righteous thing to do. But you pay your tithes doesn't make you righteous. But it is the righteous thing to do. Amen. But we want to talk back into the theme here, and we need to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 12, please. That's what we need to go to. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. I mean, we had an awesome time in praise and worship. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, this is where the theme comes from. Look at 28 down to verse 31. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. And God has set some in the church. First apostles, secondarily prophets, thirdly teachers, after that miracles, the gifts of healings, helps, government, diversities of tongues. Are all apostles, all prophets, all teachers, all workers of miracles, have all the gifts of healing, do all speak with tongues, do all interpret, but covet earnestly the best gift, and yet show out unto you a more excellent God. And when I look at our theme here with grace for the gift, I came to my mind, there is nothing I can do to deserve. I can work and earn this grace here. And that gift here, that's singular now. There's not no excellent in that. I thank God for Jesus. Amen. I say I thank Him for Jesus. And Christian can be empowered by the blood of the Lamb if he knows and understands what it means to have faith and the blood. You can be empowered. Whatever comes your way, whatever circumstances or situation may come your way, I'm telling you, God has provided, He has provided something that you can be empowered to overcome that. Yeah. Well, we come to understand by grace and the gift, that faith and the blood of Jesus is knowing what the blood had accomplished for us. Come on. By His grace. I said by His grace. My brothers and sisters, faith in the blood of Jesus is knowing what the blood of Jesus has ratified. That's good. You must know that. You have to know that because you can't have faith in anything without knowing the grace and the will of God. You must know what God's will is for your life. You must spend time, take time, and get into the Word of God and see what the will of God is for you. Yes. Watch this. Until you know the will of God or the Word of God, you will not be able to release faith in it. And when you get a revelation of grace and the gift of God, you will be able to flow and operate in the supernatural. God will each and every one of us to flow and operate in the supernatural power of God. Watch this. Until you know the will of God about the blood of Jesus, it is impossible to release your faith in it. And therefore, it will be impossible to be empowered by it. Be very impossible. So it's very important that you spend time to get into the Word of God. So faith in the blood of Jesus is knowing what the blood has ratified. And knowing what the blood has accomplished for us. Yes. And by His grace, by the grace of God, it is very, very important that you know that. Yes. Secondly, you begin to believe it. See, once you spend time in building your faith in the blood of the Lamb, then once you begin to believe it, then you will start using it, or you will start appropriating the blood in every situation of your life. You see, the blood of Jesus can do anything and everything that you want to do. You just got to know how to apply and appropriate it to that situation. Amen. Appropriate the blood. Yes. But I want to use for a subtopic tonight is faith for abundance.
All right now.
I know we have a theme, grace for the gift. But I want to use for a subtopic, faith for abundance. God wants each and every one of us to live in abundance. Glory to God. He don't want us to be in lack. He don't want us to be in insufficiency. He wants to live in abundance. Watch this. You will begin to declare by the blood of Jesus, I have victory today. By the blood of Jesus. I'm healed today. I'm whole today. I'm delivered today by the blood of Jesus. I'm covered under the blood of the Lamb. So the structure will not be able to affect me. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that's kingdom talk. And God wants each and one of us to talk kingdom talk. See, once you begin to appropriate the blood of Jesus, you take what you are learning about the blood and turn it into a confession, and then you use it against the enemy. You don't use it against your brothers and sisters. You take what you have learned concerning the blood of Jesus and use it to the enemy. We got a devil, ladies and gentlemen, who don't take vacation. Right, and you're going to need to have some revelation knowledge concerning the blood of Jesus. You have to know how to appropriate it and how to apply it to your situation. You see, ladies and gentlemen, when you start appropriating the blood of Jesus, you begin to see victory in your life. You begin to see victory in your ministry. You begin to see victory in your family. Through faith in the blood of Jesus. Faith, my brothers and sisters, as my son said, is the master key. If you spend time to develop your faith, it's the master key, it's the trigger. Whatever you believe in for God, develop your faith. And I can assure you God will bless you. He will give you the desires of your heart. Watch this here. Now we notice that at the crucifixion of Jesus, there were 5 specific places where the blood was shed. His blood, God's blood was shed because of his grace and the gift. Glory to God. The grace and the gift. We thank him for his grace and we thank him for his gift and that gift for Jesus that he gave us. We notice that the back, when Jesus was beaten with the cat o' nine tail, listen, blood was released from those stripes. And the Bible says that by his stripes we are healed. He didn't say we're going to be healed. He said we are healed, ladies and gentlemen. We got to say what God says about us. We got to leave Pookie and Ray Ray and all them alone. We got to say what the word says about. He didn't say we're going to be healed. He said we are healed. And I'm going to stand on that word, my brothers and sisters. And I want to challenge you to stand on that word. So the blood that was released from the stripes from his back, it purchased our healing. It purchased our healing, my brothers and sisters. Every time the blood was released in these 5 different parts, something was purchased for us. spoke at least about 3 of them. Glory to God. And when the blood of Jesus was released and spilled in his back, he knew what purchase for us. So never again should you tolerate being sick. Why? Because the blood have bought your healing. Then we notice the second point, where power will release from his for us, is when they put a crown of thorns they put a crown of thorns on his head. Those thorns were put on his head, and blood, my brothers and sisters, ran down his face. Our Lord and Savior. See, their head is where endowment takes place. It's the place where the blessing would be restored upon somebody, and it was the hand that they lay hands on and release the blessing. Glory to God. When the blood was released because of the crown of thorns, those crowns, ladies and gentlemen, represent the curse. But I thank God for the blood. And I thank God for his word that we have been redeemed from the curse. Glory to God. So you and I have a position that we walk into the word of God. And we speak the word of God over our situation. Because of the blood. When the blood was released from the head, that blood released from the head purchased our deliverance from the curse. And that's our deliverance, my brothers and sisters. We are delivered from the curse. We are blessed. What's this? So you will never be cursed again another day in your life. Why? Because the blood of Jesus has purchased your freedom from the curse. You just got to walk in it. You have to walk in it. Now the third point of power, where during the crucifixion, the blood came out of his hands. And this is so important that you see this. And we must understand that what took place when the blood came out of his hands. We thank God for the grace, for his grace. And we thank God for the gift. Listen. God will meet you at the level your faith is at. Amen. That's the reason why it's very important that you develop your faith. Because he will meet you right where your faith is at. The hands. Blood are being spilled from his hands. Can we go a little bit deeper here?
Let's go deeper, Pastor.
Go to John chapter 19. John chapter 19. I see some of y'all come up. I see them blinking on the apostle. I got to take them to the word. There's one thing you can do with Pastor, but don't blink on it. Don't blink. In John chapter 19, if he does say praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Let's pick it up in verse 16 down to verse 18. Then delivered he him, therefore, unto them to be crucified. And they took Jesus and led him away. And he bearing the cross, his cross, went forth into a place called a place of his skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha. Where they crucified him, two others with him on either side, and Jesus in the midst. They crucified him. Watch this. Now, in crucified Jesus, they stretched his hand and nailed him to the cross. My God. And blood flowed freely. with him bearing hardship because of the grace of God and because of the gift. Listen, Jesus was pierced. But what did Jesus shed? Why did he shed his blood from his hand? There's a reason why he shed his blood. But you must understand that God is a God of most merciful all around. There's a purpose and a reason for everything. And there's a reason why he shed blood in his hands. First of all, we prophesied.
All right now.
Before he was even born, that he would shed blood in his hand.
Right.
And that wouldn't come to pass. I mean, that prophet lied, and King David's not lying. But it was prophesied, my brothers and sisters. Why did Jesus shed blood through his hand? You see, his hands are the symbol of the economic capability of strength.
All right now.
Your hands are used to labor and gather wealth.
All right now.
Your hands. Your hands are used to labor and to gather wealth.
Amen.
Watch this.
Thank Jesus.
You receive and you give money with your hands. I said you receive and you give money with your hands. Can we go to Look at Deuteronomy chapter 20. I want you to see. Deuteronomy 20. Deuteronomy 20. And Deuteronomy 28. Look at verse 8. The Lord shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouse, and in that all thou settest thy what? Thy hand unto. And he shall bless thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth. We command the blessing to come to us now in Jesus' name. We command the blessing to come in now in Jesus' name. Not tomorrow, but now in Jesus' name. He's saying that I want the works of your hand to be blessed so that with your hands you can land in our body.
Hallelujah.
Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 12. Deuteronomy chapter 12. You see what I'm doing? That's the reason why we encourage the people. Bring your Bible with you.
Right.
So you can make sure the man of God staying in contact with the word of God. You're not taking it out of context. See, our mama did it a long time ago, back in the 50s. But them days is over now. You got to bring your Bible with you. In Deuteronomy chapter 12, look at one particular verse. And that'll be verse 7. In Deuteronomy. And there you shall eat before the Lord your God. And you shall rejoice. Somebody say rejoice. And all that you shall put your hand unto. And in your household, wherein the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. You see, God wants to rejoice. He's saying that you're going to rejoice all that you put your hand to. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to get this. God wants to rejoice. You see, God wants to bless the works of your hands. And you prosper. You prosper in abundance. And all that you set out to do. This is what's supposed to happen to Christian people. God don't want you and I in that. He don't want us in insufficiency. True. We can't have no battle we in line.
Right.
He wants us to spend time to get into the Word of God and walk in it.
Come on.
Now, I don't have much time, my brothers and sisters, but I want you to see this, what I'm getting to show you right now. I don't have much time with it. One crucial area where the curse had came in during the time of the fall. And it affected man to where his economy was concerned.
Come on.
When the fall took place, it affected man. Because of the fall, Adam's economy was impacted. So prior to the fall of man was living in God abundance. Oh, to God. All that he needed was freely available to him. It was right there in the garden.
Yes, it was.
Watch this. Man did not need to sweat in order to eat. Abundance was at his fingertip. Listen. God provided a garden of abundance before he made this man. He provided for him. Watch this. And God called that garden abundance. What? Eden. Listen. The word Eden means abundance. It means pleasure. It means paradise. It means bliss or delight. This is what Adam had before the fall. He had it all, my brothers and sisters. He had it all. But after the fall, man driven out of abundance. He was driven out. Man was driven out of Eden. Man was driven out of abundance. He was driven out of pleasure. He was driven out of paradise. He was driven out of delight. And from henceforth to live out the sweat of his faith. Watch this. And poverty showed up. Poverty is not a creation of God. Abundance is the creation of God. Poverty is a creation of Satan. But thank God for his grace and for the gift. Thank you for his grace. It ain't nothing you can do to earn that grace. Ain't nothing you can do to earn the gift. Just receive it, glory to God. Listen. You have clearly read that God wants the works of your hands to be blessed. God had called you to abundance. And don't you be around here selling for poverty. Poverty is a curse. God has worked everything out. Grace for the gift. You are blessed. And you're not in lack. And don't you put up with lack. Come out in Jesus' name. Speak the word and speak the word over you. The word of God can do anything and everything that you want to do. But you got to know how to apply it. You have to know how to appropriate it. The word of God.
Amen.
Watch this here. See, you have to start saying something out of your mouth. You can't just sit up day by day, and don't say anything. You got to speak the word and speak the word only. Listen. If you don't say nothing, but see now, this is not supposed to happen to me. I'm the righteousness of God.
Hallelujah.
I'm not supposed to be in lack of anything. When you get a revelation of the blood or what Jesus did, you should be in lack of nothing.
Right.
So we know he went on live under the 11, so he had to be spiritual death. Couldn't have been natural death. Because he did that right there. So what is death? Separation from the Father. Right. And from the Father provision. What did he do? He disobeyed. He disobeyed. Disobedience will cause you to be separated from the Father. Today is the day you exit from that. Today that you exit from insufficiency. And no longer would you be sweating like a sinner.
Come on now.
You will live in the blessing of God. Because of His grace and because of the gift what He has provided for you and I. See, the blood of Jesus has redeemed you from poverty. When Jesus stretched out His hands and allowed nail to pierce His hand, He was paying in the price to cancel lack and sufficient in your life. He would cancel all of it. Come on. But He wants you to walk in it. He wants you to receive it. And at the same time, He will release an abundance on your life. He will release abundance upon your family. He will release abundance on your job. He will release abundance upon your associates. And everything that you put your hand to, blood came out of His hand. See, since it's already paid for, you might as well use it. I don't want to get away from it. If Jesus paid the price for it, I want it. Let me break it down for you a little bit. Let's say you and I will go to a restaurant. And you go to the restaurant. And I tell you that I paid for your meal. I don't want you to let it sit there and let it get cold and they throw it away. I want you to enjoy the meal that I paid for. No, I want you to eat it since it's already paid for and it's good and hot. Right, so I'm moving to my clothes. What if the 10th thing is true? Since your deliverance from lack, deficiency, insufficiency have already been paid for by the grace and by the gift, take advantage of it. Take advantage of what God has provided for you. Watch this. And since He paid for abundance to be released in your life, me too, I ain't leave myself out. Then you might as well put on abundance. Take off that. Since it's already been paid for. Since the blood had came out of His hand. Take advantage of it. Your abundance has been paid for. By the blood of Jesus. And don't you let the world talk you out of it. It's paid for. But you're scared to walk in it. You don't have to be scared when Jesus has provided all for you. He wants you to walk in the gift of healing. He wants you to walk in the gift of prosperity. He wants you to walk in deliverance. He wants you to walk in. There are people out there that need to be delivered and they're waiting on you and I. And you're scared to walk in the why? Because you think you're doing the work. You're not doing the work. He's doing the work. He just wants you to take a step of faith and step out into it. And watch you see the manifestation and the demonstration of the power of the Holy Spirit. It's paid for. But you don't use it.
Thank you, Jesus.
But you don't take advantage of it.
Yes.
Listen, everything that Jesus paid for with His blood, I want it. And I'm going to wear it. I'm going to walk in it. I'm going to live in it. It's paid for. Somebody give the Lord a shout of praise. If you don't remember nothing else, you just remember this right here. That you are the righteousness of God. You are the righteousness of God. You don't know what that and whose you are. Say, I'm righteous.
I'm righteous.
And watch this. Your righteousness is not based on what you did
Right.
or what you didn't do.
Right.
Your righteousness is not based on who you cussed out on the way to church. Your righteousness is not based on how much reefer you smoked last night or how much you drunk. Your righteousness is based upon Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? Now, it's not a righteous thing to do. So now, since you know that you are the righteous of God, they don't give you no right to go out and live any kind of way.
That's right.
Right? God will forgive you,
Yeah.
but there's still consequences.
That's right.
Come on, give the Lord a shout of praise. Amen.
Come on, give the man of God and the word of God a hand. Pastor Harold Britton. Amen. Royal Priesthood Ministries. We're going to certainly have a speaker's offering for him, but those of you that may be watching and those that are here, we got some little people here as well. You may not have accepted Jesus as your Savior and Lord. Jesus. There is grace for you today. Amen. Faith has been administered. Faith has been administered. Now receive that. Hallelujah. Are you sure today, if you died right now, that you will be in the presence of God? Amen. And entering into his place called paradise in heaven? Are you certain of that? If you're not, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to receive Jesus Christ as your Savior and Lord. All who call on the name of Jesus shall be saved. Yeah. So right now, Father, those who have not received you as their Savior and Lord, that now that they would appropriate the grace of Christ Jesus, the gift to all mankind. Oh Lord, that you will touch everyone and minister to every soul the gift of salvation. We thank you for it right now, Lord God, that it is done. And someone said, amen. Amen. We certainly thank God for those of you who are here. And let me just say that we want to give an amen to the Word and the man of God. And we will do that with the offering. Hallelujah. My wife and I are going to start with $100 here. We just want to seed into your life.
Yes, ma'am.
We challenge you with $20 tonight, if you like. Whatever the Lord has placed on your heart. God loves a cheerful giver. The Bible says in Luke 6:38, give and it will be given to you. It'll be good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. Man will give it to your bosom. You write out a check, please write it out to COA. As what's been said, we are a ministry of integrity. So all that is given based on our request will be given to the man of God. Amen. So I want you to give by faith. I want you to take the challenge on. And I certainly want you to be blessed as you plant a seed in this word. Now let me say, while you're still writing, that he did not know, because he was not here, that we have been. We love some songs on the blood. I think LaFleur plays it like every time he got to have one blood song in his repertoire of songs that he sings on Sunday and plays on Sunday. But certainly we preached on Sin of Attraction, remember? We preached on the curse of poverty. Remember that? We did a series on that. And because there is so much need of God, appropriation of healing, and us receiving that, every Wednesday we fast and pray for God to heal us in the camp. Amen. Amen. So again, we heard it again from the Lord and from the mouth of the man of God. And we thank God for it. Faith is the master key
Right.
Faith is needed for the gift, he said. And the blood brought our healing and brought our deliverance and enabled us to live in abundance. Y'all remember that line, the blood-bought church? Amen. And some sleepy one here today did not even get it. The blood-bought church. That's what we are. Amen. All right, I want you to give as you stand and just come as you are and please give. Thank you. Had a chance to give. Everybody got a chance to give. Stretch your hand this way. We agree with the word. We agree, Lord, with the seed. Blow on it. Bring forth fruit after its kind. 36 to 100 fold. We declare it right now in Jesus' name. And everyone said amen. Also, before I forget, we do have food and fellowship. Don't leave without. Just let us gather together and eat together in fellowship. Hallelujah. As of course, we want to honor our men and women of God first, and then we certainly will provide opportunities for you to also fellowship with us. Thank you.
Praise the Lord. We have some testimonies from Sister Mary Ann and Brother Rich.
All right.
There is a time limit, and because we can talk forever. But while they are coming, I just want to say something about my spiritual mom and dad. I've been here now for more than 30 years. Happy to be here. I thank God for my pastors. They kept me lifted up in prayer while I was out of the city, when I was traveling home over the weekends. All of that, I felt the prayers. When I couldn't be here, I missed home, but I know my mom and dad kept me covered with the blood of Jesus. When I got discouraged, it's like Apostle has radar, he already know. And Prophetess, when I'm going through something, I don't have to say a word. They know. Prophetess just hug me, love me. Let me know, I'm not by myself. Remind me, look at where God has brought you from and everything that you've been through. If it wasn't for these two, I know I would have given up so much, such a long time ago. But I thank God for my mom and my spiritual dad, because they are my foundation. They show me how to tap into God, to hold on when I feel like He is not there. He's right there. And I remember the word that He gave me more than 30 years ago. When I first came to this ministry, He told me that He is my Jehovah Shammah. He is always there. And I hold on to that word to this day. Amen.
All I can say is that these two people have been instrumental in my spiritual walk. I have been through a lot of changes, and I was looking for a church home. When I came to Saginaw, I was really, really, truly looking for a church home. And I went to several churches, but I couldn't find what I was looking for. And then my stepmom said, well, we're going to go out here to the Sheridan. But that was just me, because I'm still in the flesh as well. I'm looking for what I need. And when I got there, I felt so welcome. Apostle, he embraced us
he embraced us so, and he taught us what it was to seek after the Lord, you know. And when you seek after the Lord, you go in depth in the studying behind it that was involved in where I became and where I was going. And he constantly giving me a word from the Lord, and he telling me where I'm going and how I'm going, and thus saith the Lord. And I'm looking like, I don't know about all that, but I'm going to do what he said, because you know when you have a genuine person.
Yes.
You know when you have a genuine person. And when prophetess, you talking about the ultimate teacher. Prophetess is the ultimate teacher. She breaks it down for you. She tells you where to go. If the nuances, they work in conjunction with each other. And so what you don't get from her, you get from him. And what you don't get from him, you get from her. And I mean, they work in unison. And it's so powerful. And you know, the enemy, when I first started coming here and a few things were happening, and the enemy said, it's time for you to go. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, don't you go nowhere. And that's how he spoke to me. He said, don't you go nowhere. I said, okay. And guess what? I've been here ever since. And I knew it was the Lord, because guess what? I have been poured into by these two. And I have been poured into by those two, and those two. And you know, I'm waiting for mine from Pastor Skeeter and Pastor Brady. I'm waiting on all of that. I'm telling you, but the day is awesome. And they make you go forward into your spiritual gifts so you can know what is God calling you for. Oh, I love it. So I just want to say, these two, there's nothing, I know my seconds is up. These two, I love them dearly. I love them dearly. All I can say is I love them dearly. Thank you.
All right.
I was asking her, she's our church administrator. She's always telling me about being on time. Yeah.
That's a tough act to follow. I'll do my best. Apostle and Prophetess, they're awesome people, as everyone sitting in this church knows. We're all here for that reason. Last year, this was said a lot about Apostle, and I'm going to continue to say it because it's absolutely true. He walks in the spirit of excellence. He's just, everything he does, he wants right on time, prompt, everything perfect, everything so forth. That's the spirit of excellence that he walks in, and we all are pushed to follow that influence from him. And that's an awesome blessing for us. He pushes us. This has been the year to push. We've heard that all year. Pushing and pressing this year. I personally been pushed and pressed. Probably everyone here in this room has. But I'm coming out of it. I'm going to push through, and I'll come out strong. That's the teaching and the guiding from my pastors here. Prophet, she's the love. You know, Apostle is love as well, just a different kind of love. It's the mom love, and the Apostle is the dad love. You know, he's but I'll tell you what, Apostle has so much love. It's amazing. I've seen him. It's just a quick little testimony. I'm not going to go into much depth, but I've seen this with my own eyes, and I know that these two do this all the time. They pour into young people. But I witnessed it. There was a young lady talking about her moving forward in life. And Apostle was talking with her and what she was going to do and education-wise and this and that. And she didn't know what she was going to do to move forward. He said, I'll back you. And she just cried right then. Boom. And I about cried right then too, seeing that. That was awesome. It was such a strong leader and such love. And I'll never forget that moment in my life, quite honestly. That was awesome. And I know that these two do this all the time. And they're not sitting up front saying, well, I did this and I did that. And you never even know what happened because they're not about them. They're not showboating for themselves. They're showboating for God. They want to show the love and they want to further the kingdom. So I just have all the respect and admiration for both of them, and I love them. And that's it. I'm good.
Amen. Excellent cook.
before we were sent to Keith Saginaw, the pastor of the church went down and told us to lay down. We had no one with us.
Both of them have been so encouraging to us. In this church, we don't belong here, but this is our second home.
All right now.
This is our second home. We are like-minded. And I tell you, when I even had a question about anything in the Word that I didn't even understand, I didn't say to them, I would call the one. She has the answer. Apostle James, you can rely on him. You can rely on him to give you good counsel. You can rely on him to give you good correction. And he's faithful, and we just consider them not just fellow servants in the body of Christ, but we consider them true friends, people we trust. That's hard sometimes. There's so much competition in the body of Christ, and we are to be one. And we really feel connected, and we feel one with them. We really do. And they are stalwarts in this city, and they are leaders in this city, and God has some big plans. They are here the longest. You heard the history, and I cannot wait to see it all fulfilled in both of our churches, in both of our relationships. Amen. We love you. We love you guys. Praise the Lord. Anyone else?
One more. I'd be remiss if I didn't come up and say something about this man, woman of God. A few years ago when they first started out, my sister Demona volunteered me to play the piano. She said, I can't come, but my sister Joyce can play. And I had played in 15, 20 years. It took me a while. They worked with me until I could get myself together. Amen? Like to play in a couple of keys. They so had to adhere to what I wanted to do. But you know what? I was here and they taught me a lot. Who would have ever known that I would be over co-pastoring with my husband? That is not something I wanted to do. Because I told my husband when I married him, whatever you do, I'm not marrying a pastor. I told him that 50 years ago. Didn't I tell you that? Before we even got married. And so when he talked, when my father called him pastor, but what God did is prepare me. I was here 10 years. And they're the ones who sent me back to my church. When my mother died in January 1999, Apostle Glenn said, we're releasing you. You need to go back to your home church. I did not want to go. I wanted to stay here. It was a safe place. Because I know what pastors' wives have to go through, okay? Thank you, Jesus. And so I didn't think I was ready for that, but they had prepared me, especially in the spiritual realm, because we watched the move of the Spirit come in this place. Not have a program with an A and a B selection and then go on with the program. Y'all know what I'm saying? So there was a move of the Spirit in this house, and I learned that move of the Spirit. And so when I go now to my church over at New Christ Community Church, I know this is our sister church, and we come over every time we can. I know that I have learned and gleaned a lot from both of them to help us to move forward. We've only been in ministry 15 years, and boy, 36 is a long time. Praise God. So we're present in that direction. Amen. So I'm thankful for the deposits that they made in me in particular to pull out of me and know that I was going to have to be in the position I am today. And so God prepared me in this place. And I know there's a move of God here. And if you come here, you have to know. You have to. You have to get a deposit. There's no way you can come here and not get a deposit. That's right. So that's all I'm going to say right there. I'm going to leave that alone.
Praise the Lord. Now we're going to hear from the celebrants. Prophetess Apostle.
Hallelujah.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Amen. Praise the Lord. You know, lately, when we started our church, I was over praise team, and I taught the praise team that my sister Joyce came in, Dimona always helped us. So it was just wonderful. We always were singing new songs all the time. And I was sitting there just thinking about your sermon, Pastor. I heard a song immediately when you got done. I didn't get a chance to sing it, but I heard the Lord say, we are redeemed from the curse of the law. I am redeemed from the curse of the law. Jesus was made a curse for us. I am redeemed. I was just singing it in my head. I am redeemed. See, by the stripes of Jesus, we are healed. And when you talked about those hands, I could see the hands redeeming us from poverty, from all the curses. And then he said, lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. That's symbolic of releasing the blessing when you lay hands on the sick. So we got to take these hands and start to say, these are Jesus' hands. These are Jesus' hands. And I'm going to do what he told me to do with them. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Glory, 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 glory. Hallelujah. And then you talk about that crown of thorns. I always took it for mental illness, oppression, grief, like mourning, but you added some dimensions to it. Yes, Lord, we thank you for the crown of thorns. And you got to finish that whole sermon next time you come back. Okay? But I enjoyed the word today, and the fellowship was very, very good. And I can see in the realm of the Spirit, God said last night at the end, Charlene said, push. We got to push, and that's what our theme is this year, is pressing. We got to press. What's it totally about? The press past what we say? Okay, you can say it. Press past the pressure into the promise. And so we got to push it and press past the pressure. And I was talking last night to the man and woman of God, to McIntyre, talking about faith. And he said, if you believe it, you got to say it. And you were saying the same thing. You got to say it. And so I went home thinking about that. Okay, Lord, faith without works is dead. So if I believe you, I got to get up and do something. You got to add some legs to your faith. So if you believe in God for something, lay your hands on it and it shall prosper. If you go back to school, you go to college, or whatever you're going to do, ask God to help you make it to prosper. If you're supposed to write a book, ask Him to help you make it to prosper. Whatever you're supposed to be doing, ask the Lord to touch your hand and cause your life to be a blessing. That's what I got from this service this evening. This has been a wonderful, wonderful appreciation, because the word has been here, the spirit has been here, and the fellowship, the koinonia. Thank all our workers working so hard. Amen. They work very hard. I told Ola, don't come out tonight. One of our health ministry, her husband, she was hit in the back yesterday, her truck, and so she was very sore. And praise God, they put her in that big machine, Dr. Fields, and did that whole scan, whole thing. Yeah, so she's fine, but very sore, very sore. So just keep her in prayer. I told her, I don't expect to see you, but I'm glad they obey me. Just don't come. Stay home and everything. Her husband stayed home with her too. So he took off a day, Pastor McTaggart, to stay home with his wife. Is that a hit? Okay. So anyway, when we have a chance, let's love on them some more when they come back. Love on each other. This is a time of fellowship, celebrating the birth of this church. Look what God has done. Look what God has done. People are coming forth in their gifts. They're coming forth, and we need to do an NSG, Pastor McTaggart, Apostle McTaggart, because the people need to understand, we said last night, how the gifts operate. What's happening is people want to flow in their gifts without the information and the revelation, and they're not trained, and they get out and look stupid, or they get out and do something wrong and interrupt the sermon, become spiritual jerks. We want to raise you up so you don't look bad, that you know how to flow in every camp you're in, amen? Become all things to all people. I love going to the Catholic camp. I love those little simple chants they do. It's very refreshing to me. So we got to learn how to blend in with all people, and the third round, God may let you prophesy. You never know. To a bishop or a coach, you don't know what's going to happen, but we have to be trained. So that's what I'm hearing here. We've got the fivefold ministry gifts, and they're pushing forward. We're pushing forward. We're going to see a manifestation or more people helping. And I think last night the three preaching women went through that great detail about the ministry of health and everything, how we have these great gifts, and God wants us to come forward. We've all been given a gift to do something for Him. So praise God.
Father's Day, night come, no man can work. Stand to your feet. My wife has said it all tonight. believe they're the best this side of heaven. We thank God for them. Also, I want to thank, again, the Britons. Come on, give them a hand. Royal Priesthood Ministry. Thank God for our pastor friends as well. And we're going, amen. We have been stretched. Remember the impartation the Lord gave us during praise and worship now. Amen. Let me say, if it's not going to be said, it won't be done. So as it relates to the gifts that God has already appropriated to us, sometimes we don't know, sometimes we don't want to know. Sometimes there are other things that gets our attention and our affection. But if it's not taught, not preached, if it's not said, it won't be done in the people and for the people. And so I stand before you and I can speak on behalf of every leader in Fivefold Ministry. And what I'm saying is that this is a season where the Spirit must be elevated. The Spirit of God, His gifts, His fruit, His enablement to every degree. Father, we thank you for what has already been appropriated to us today. We are so grateful. We are so thankful. And we love you for it, God. We thank you for 36 years. We thank you, God, for people in our lives. Yes, those who have stayed, those who have gone. We thank you for every experience. We thank you for every friend, Lord God, that you've given to us from the kingdom, for the kingdom. We thank you for this and many other things that you will do. We leave this place not from your presence. Lord God, we declare grace for the travel as they go to their respective place. And now, Lord, grace this food. Lord, we thank you now for our strength because of it. And the impurities are out of it. And Lord, we're going to gather it all up and eat it well for the glory's sake. In Jesus' name, amen.